guys and girls. Welcome to the Fellas Podcast, where we will just talk about F1. This podcast is going to be about all F1. My name is Mark.
My name is Simon.
I'm Ralph.
Okay. Topics that we'd like to talk about today are, of course, what's going on with Lewis Hamilton. We have the Christian Horner allegations, and as far as I can tell, they're just allegations. And we'd like to talk about our F1 debuts. Let's lead it off with, let's start with everybody wants to talk about the allegations at Red Bull and what's going on there. As far as I know, Red Bull is handling this situation, and higher ups at F1 would like this situation solved. Any comments?
Yeah. The allegations to me seem very weird, right? It was that he was controlling and being very, I guess the word that they were using is controlling, but being very adamant about things within the pit, in the mechanical area and engineering. He was being very vocal and overpowering. How is that, to me, an allegation? I thought the allegation was going to be some sort of assault, harassment, but it's because he's being very controlling.
I was under the impression it was with a female.
Yeah, it was with a female.
Okay.
But I read it, and it was more about him being very controlling during their meetings together.
Right.
So that sounds like a team principle to me. You're supposed to exercise some control, but yeah, I did hear it's over some text messages, I guess inappropriate texting.
Yes.
That he did. So
I missed that.
Yeah, so it's a wait and see. I've also heard that it was leaked to the Dutch press, and some people are wondering if it's Jos Verstappen, if he leaked it, because it's known that he's not happy with the fact that Max is not a clear number one. They're not happy with the fact that Checo won Monaco. They feel it should all favor Max. So, and that Jos is pretty close with Helmut Marko. So some are speculating or wondering if it's some kind of a coup that he's helped feeding. I mean, not saying that the allegations that it may or may not have happened, but he may be using that to, turn things over a little bit at Red Bull. But that's all I've heard.
How could you not think that Max isn't a clear number one?
No, well, from what I've got, I guess he wants it more like how it was when Michael was racing a Ferrari with Rubens, where he is number one. Like,
you got to remember, Max is Helmut's boy, right? So Helmut wants everything to revolve around Max.
Right.
So you just have to take that in consideration, and when it comes to his opinion, that he's just, it's a bit skewed, put it that way.
Right. And apparently, Christian may have been doing things a little differently, and it's not to their liking. So, Yeah,
because think about it, man. Even though the guys are number two, who are you going to get to sit in that second seat if you follow what Helmut wants, supposedly, where Max is God? Nobody's going to come to that company to sit there, and anybody that comes there is going to be a joke driver. So you got to, even though you favor Max, you still have to give some ear that, somebody else can have some sort of input. Helmut back in the day is known to have some weird ideas about stuff. So, I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, I guess it would want somebody like Bottas, that really can't challenge, maybe on his best day, compared to, but they don't want somebody, then it's kind of easy because it's like, hey, you have the car, you're not achieving the results. What are you going to do? But they just need him to bring points home. But apparently, Checo isn't trying to do that. But anyway, that was the talk. All I know is that
he's not trying to do that. I think he is trying to do that. He just can't keep up.
Well, I think it comes back into the car setup. That's where it comes back to, and how they design the car in favor of a driver's driving style. That's what that's my take on it, because I think I mentioned before, right, that Checo has had substandard cars throughout, from I can remember, and he's always been able to pull the car up out of where it should be into other realms. So my question, is that then how different is this, right? That it makes him uncomfortable when he's riding the car to not feel, able to adjust himself to drive it. And I think there was some other there's some other things happening in the background, my speculation, that kind of threw him off mid-season, because he did come back in towards the end of the season. It's just that he had an issue qualifying, right? Getting up there. So, and that could be a problem with the also with the car setup, right? Because the car set up a certain way, you don't want to crash the car, right? Because you need it for the next day. So you're trying to figure out how far you can go where somebody else that is more comfortable with that setup, right? Because I've heard that Max likes the car it likes the ass to move around on the car, and Checo may not be that type of driver. Right, he doesn't want his car to be, loose on the end. Maybe he wants it to be, like a typical understeer car, and that he can then, he knows a technique to get around that. So, when he's doing all that stuff, I think there was a lot of head games that would kind of stop him from, pulling himself up, because, in the qualifying. Because I think if he were able to qualify, I think there would have been a better, aside from internal club, direction, he would be able to challenge Max.
Well, maybe.
I'm not taking away Max. So I'm not saying Max can drive. Yes, there are certain techniques I don't appreciate, and it's right up to the drivers to step up and say, "Yo, I own this track too." So just because you come to the corner and we're at the corner, it doesn't mean I'm going to give it to you. But I think Checo is a capable driver. I think he's
he is.
People that have substandard vehicles and they're able to pull it up. I have to give him props, because after, just looking at stuff, it's something to do that, because remember what it said, right? All these guys drive the car. They have to find out where the edge of the car is, and they have to drive on that edge. So, you got to find something that you're comfortable to push to the edge to make it work for you.
Right. Well, that may be, but I don't know. I'm gonna wait to see, because that's the inner workings of the team. I'm waiting to see, just like everybody else, to see what happened with this thing with Christian Horner. Because not
How
even
many qualifying? Didn't he have at least one or two qualifying last year, or did Verstappen win them all?
No, Checo had some showings last year, if I remember correctly, where he was up on the top. But again, it's just So it's just he's one of the drivers I put there. As far as, I have to give props to somebody that can pull a car up that's not good to make it come better, right? Because like Lewis did that towards the end of the season, right? It seems, I don't know what happened to him mid-season, but it seemed like he got to it and he's like, okay, he knows the car, and he's he knows what the car can't do and can do, but he was able to then use his knowledge and experience as a 7-time world champion to figure out how to pull it to the front, right? Even George was pushing and pushing and pushing, but it seemed like Lewis was using wisdom, right? Because experience brings wisdom, some knowledge, and it's he would push it to key times as opposed to just pushing all the time. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, because I think. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying it just shows, right, that he was able to bring the car up from there, right? Because and to bring it up to where move it up a spot more, 2 spots more than where it was, and they had a chance where they had the opportunity to go after them, but there was some other things that kind of got in the way of that. So,
yeah, because I can say overall, Russell drove better than him on certain tracks, and then Lewis would come out on top somehow.
Right. So that's where I think experience comes from, right? Because it's so to win a championship, you don't have to finish first all the time. You just have to finish, right? Somebody said something like that. So you just got to know where you need to finish in each race in order for you to cover the spot you're going for, right? That even though everybody, in the U.S. we say, second is the first loser, but over there it's like, whatever position you come into is he played the long game, right? And figured out how to get there to move up a spot. So, that's where knowledge comes. They had a car that was, somewhat relatively good within the field, but just not good enough to go after the Red Bull cars.
Yeah. And you were right, Ralph. I was just reading some more on Christian Horner. It's allegedly an affair,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
With an employee, which didn't really match the stuff that I read earlier.
Right.
So I don't know what to believe now because I got two sources, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
allegations, and I've heard there's a payoff of 1.2 million, but it's just allegations at this point, and it doesn't sound like the F1 is involved. It just sounds like leaving it to Red Bull.
Yeah, F1's not involved. It's internal, but the question is, if there's a payoff, let's say if he's not found innocent, and there's a payoff, and even not found guilty, is he going to still be the team principal?
So let me say this, right? I'm no lawyer, but from what I've heard in the business world, sometimes they rather, instead of being right, they just rather pay it off and move on.
Absolutely.
Right? Because the cost of, the cost
it can get worse.
Well, not even that too, but the cost financially and from a resource perspective, when they do the cost analysis, it's just not worth it. It's just rather to give them some money and have them move on and go about their business, right? And as far as I stand on this one, I will leave. I'm not going to dive into it because it's a touchy thing, right? It's from somebody dealing with the opposite sex and all that stuff, it's a touchy stuff, right? So I just I just leave it alone. And then they're going to have to decide if he did do it, then they're going to have to decide, well, maybe if he did do it, that means I would want to speculate that he may have exhibited this behavior before and nobody said anything, right? Because I don't think this thing would pop up overnight, right? So and as for Red Bull to decide on what they're going to, how they're going to approach it, right? Because again, it's tumultuous in some of these organizations, right? And people, looking to overthrow people. So
yeah, well, that's true, and that's why I was saying Sky Sports is not touching it. They mentioned that it happened, but they don't get into it. Everybody's waiting to see what the outcome is because there isn't much information out there anyway. It's very hush hush. So
let me ask you guys a question.
Huh?
Let me ask you guys a question. You guys work in the corporate world, right? You guys work in real life.
Except for Mark doesn't think I work in there, so that's
that's right, Tom.
There's a couple of people that can confirm that you don't.
Okay.
But we all know how touchy this subject is. We all know that as far as men are concerned in the workforce, working with women, nowadays sensitivity training is numero uno, right?
Yep.
To me, it has to be. I'm assuming it's the same in Europe, right? Since this topic is being headlined at this point, right? And you would think that both of them, not just Christian, but the young lady, know that this is a no-no, right? You would think. So I'm going to be in the middle on this one. I'm not going to say it's one way or the other, but I do know, even in my position at work, that it's straightened out. It's black and white. And then there's witnesses when you have meetings and things like that.
Right.
There is no gray, right?
There should be no gray
right now.
I said there should be no gray. Yes.
Right. Well, I'm just talking about me. I can't talk about anybody else. But it's black and white. It's facts. This is the conversation, and I know I don't even when it comes to things like that, I don't delete emails. I don't delete because context is key, right? You may say something, and if you don't have the context of the 3 emails before, you're like, well, what did he mean by this? What did she mean by this? No. You know what I mean? Let's go back 3 emails, and that's what I meant by it. And so to me, we're thinking this day and age, Christian Horner would have known better. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
If it's accurate, yes.
Let's be fair. It's just allegations.
It's just allegations, right? And that's the point I'm trying to get to. It's just like, man, it just seems in this day and age, everybody should be like tip top. You know what I mean? And straight now. But anyway.
But moving on. So, okay.
So who watched the car stuff?
Moving on to Lewis's move, or
the car stuff. Let's do the car stuff.
Yeah.
Because it ties in. Let's do the car stuff. Anybody got to look at the new cars?
I did not. I did see the Red Bull one, but that's the only one I got a chance to see.
That
Did they
what about you,
eliminate
Mark?
the side pods? I saw.
Yeah, well, how they change it?
So the Red Bull car of this year looks like the Mercedes of last year. Is that correct? Because I saw a car that eliminated the side pods, or they were very small.
Yeah, well, I would say yes. It seems like what the scuttle on the road is on the road is that Red Bull did the opposite of what was done last year. It seems that from what I picked up on, they're saying that everybody else copied what Red Bull had, and Red Bull has moved away from that and gone in a different direction with some similarities to what Mercedes did,
Right.
but they still put their own unique twist on it. It's not a 100% copy. Right. So yeah, and everybody's saying that they want to see also. The key thing is what they did on the floor. The floor is what everybody's data I saw is what everybody's saying. What did they do to compensate for on the floor? Right, because on the floor of the car plays a major role in how the car behaves on track.
And nobody
manages it.
That. You remember what happened in Monaco when they raised the car up? Everybody got a picture of what it looked like that week there.
Yes. So when they did, I saw. So when I saw a reveal, there was a bunch of Red Bull people standing at the back of the car, so there was no cameras that could show what was going on. Right. That's the reveal I saw. That's kind of they had a big walk around because the car that they. So I was also enlightened that they had two cars. Right, the real car showed up on track for testing, whereas the one that was on display was not the real car.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So we'll see.
I think it's pretty interesting. Let's just say they have another winning car this year, 2024, that resembles Mercedes, and they made their design work for them.
I could see them doing something like that. I could see them doing that. I agree with you. I could see them doing that to show that, to exercise their supremacy, right?
Right. You guys were this close, but we made it work.
Yeah. I could see them doing that. I could see Red Bull doing that to say, really just, close the dominance and say, yo, we're it. You know what I'm saying? Just throw the mic down and say, we're it. So we'll see what happens when they, start going together with each other.
Right. Because at the end of the day, an F1 car is a fighter jet just on the road.
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah. They pull a lot of G's in those cars, when they turn. So it's because I remember somebody say when your instinct says to brake, you need to accelerate because you need the aero to work for you, or else you're going to be in big trouble. So yes. So I agree with that statement for sure.
Which is hard to comprehend from our standpoint,
Yes.
If everything is telling me to brake, it's hard to overcome that and accelerate. That's why they're in the car and we're here.
Yeah, well, because I think it takes time, right? Because that's where they learn from, F3, F1, F2 and all that stuff. And it's still, even though they have air on those cars, right? They still say it's still a leap to come to F1, right? Right. And it's something that you have to grow to be comfortable with. Right. And then, be to the point where you can exploit it, right, to do what you want to do. So, it's a whole different animal. You know what I'm saying? The only thing I think nothing comes close to it. I'll say that. But in the sports car world, I would say the LMP cars that, do Le Mans, they're kind of close to it as a closed wheel vehicle. Right. I think that's the only thing that kind of comes somewhat close to it. So you see a lot of times. I've not seen a lot of F1 drivers like when they come to do Le Mans go to a traditional car, like a GT3 or GT4. They always go into LMP cars, right? Because so I'm thinking that's a much easier of a portable skill, right, for you to handle that car because it has a high level of aerodynamics. So to them it's probably slow with their aero anyway, but they can just master that. But, I agree.
Yeah. The funny thing is, I've always thought, like, when you're driving these race cars, do you use 20% of the brake, or every time you press the brake, are you all on?
Well, so you got to look at night. You ever look at the cars at night when they come into a stop? You don't. How can I say it? There are different techniques, right? However, if you're late braking somebody, you're all on it. So you want to scrub speed first and then bleed off as you go into the corners, right? So, so that you can then, keep weight on the nose to point the car in the direction you want it to go in, right? So, but if you want to see if they're using, a quarter a little, just watch a night race, because when they come to the braking zones, those rotors are glowing.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So they're not playing. They are on that brake, using that brake to do it, because, I've been told even some of the guys from the sports car world, they all go into ABS to stop the car. That's how late they go into the brake.
Right.
And if you look at sometimes when we're in the cockpit and you see the driver's steering wheel, you can see when they hit the throttle full force, and you can see when they hit the brake full force, green and red. It varies based on the turn and based on how fast they're coming from into the next corner, right? So I've seen it hit full brake, especially in Monza, right? So,
Yep. And I'd want to venture to say that for the tracks that you're carrying like 200 miles an hour, right, coming on that straight, you're going to be on that brake for full, because you're doing it from 200 to do an 80-mile-an-hour corner. There's a lot of braking that has to happen.
Well, from my perspective, it's a race car. So I put myself in this race car, right? And I'm thinking I got to make this turn, but maybe I'll just touch the brake a little bit. But a professional driver will take it to the edge, and he's going to be all on all the time. That's what I've heard. It's all on the brake and all on the gas. There is no middle ground.
So yes, I agree with you. They agree. I agree with Junior on that one, because on Ralph with that one, because there was that standard, right? And I can only speak for the lower ranks, like wherever you're like on and off, but the professional drivers come back and say that's a falsehood, right? There are times that you have maintenance throttle. Right. So there are times that it's all about managing the body, the weight transfer on the car, and there are times that you coast in order, you carry enough corner speed that you can coast to get to the point where you're going to transfer the weight on the car to either the back to the back wheels. So,
but the science of it all, even when they're going down the straight, I've heard they're still on the brake just to keep them warm, to keep the temperatures up.
All right, can I go for that one, answer?
That'd be nice to know. Try to find out.
So what they do is this, right? If you ever watch them and they're coming to the braking zone, you'll see their brake light pop on and pop off. What they're doing is reseating the pads, bringing the pads back closer to the rotor, because sometimes there can be a thing called pad knockback, where the pad is so far away from the rotor that when they go to hit the brake, you have what you call a long pedal. You don't feel it. The pad's not touching the rotor right away. So what they'll do is you'll be coming in and you'll see the brake light that's flash on and flash off, right? And that's what they're doing, is just tapping the brake, making sure I know not in Formula One, but I know in other series, they'll tap the brake just to bring the pads in, so that as they get into the braking zone, then they go braking from there.
Do they have regenerated brakes in F1 cars?
When they had the KERS system, I don't know how the ERS, what they're using now is, but KERS, they had it where there was some regeneration of the battery.
Well, if that's the case, then you don't even have to hit the brakes, Mark. I don't know if you've ever driven a Tesla, but the Teslas have regenerated brakes. Right. You just take your foot off the gas and you're slowing down.
Right.
Isn't
that called engine braking?
Huh?
No.
Isn't that engine braking?
No, that's not.
Not electric.
Not electric.
Yeah. Nice.
So engine braking is when you downshift without double clutching and you feel the car come down from the engine, because you're using the engine to pull the car down, right? If you do a heel and toe and downshift, then you don't feel the car dive to the nose anymore. You're just in the gear, right? So our traditional way of downshifting is using engine braking.
Right. Okay.
And one thing, when we're talking about gas all on or brake all on, all off, whatever gas, I know from the Michael days, with the difference between him and Michael and Rubens, was that Michael had a very sharp accelerator pedal, which was like what you said, on, off, like that. But Rubens had a long one, so he could step into it more and like modulate the power a little better. So some of these drivers may have that. They don't talk about that because that's part of, that's a little secret.
Right.
But they may not be all on off.
Right. I've heard that Michael did heel and toe, but Rubens was left foot braking.
So,
Yeah.
It was one or the other. It was never both.
Actually, I think it was Michael. Sorry?
Which Michael?
Schumacher.
So you only do heel and toe when you have a manual.
Right. That's what I was going to say. Michael, I believe, was a left foot braker.
Was he?
So that he could balance the car between the brake and the gas a little bit, something in certain corners.
No, I'm sorry. Rubens was a right foot braker.
Right.
So his left foot wasn't really doing anything. He was
right. But Michael was a left foot breaker.
Right.
Have you ever tried that?
Yeah, it's hard. Yeah.
I have.
Huh?
I almost killed myself trying to do that.
Yeah.
But my foot is just so used to being the clutch.
Yes.
It just goes straight to the floor.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much sensitivity you have in your right foot. But I've caught myself half asleep when I was back at school, left foot braking off an off ramp once, and that was because I was practicing left foot braking. So yeah, it's a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. In today's cars, though, you can't really do it without it being tuned for it, because it violates the rules upon which it was designed. So you'll get nothing.
Oh.
Yeah.
I would think if it's a paddle shift car that's set up for it, I think it would be easier because you don't have a clutch.
Right.
So you can train the left foot to give the right amount of pressure.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you have a standard H pattern with 3 pedals, it's hard.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other level. Guys that do that with the H pattern is a whole other level. Yes.
Oh yeah, there's a guy on YouTube that takes people's cars on Nürburgring, and he's always got the camera on his feet. Huh?
Misha.
Yeah,
His name's Misha.
And he will do every once in a while with the manuals. He'll do his left foot braking as well as his right foot braking.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does it. The guy can drive.
Yeah, there's a lot of practice for that. Wow.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Because you have to get that sensitivity, right? Because it's a lot of sensitivity you need to develop in your left foot. But if you can do it, makes you a better track driver, because you can, get the transition. You cut down that transition time from throttle to brake really quick. Or sometimes you even do some brake and throttle depending on the car situation. So it's a good tool that they, some guys have. But yeah, all F1 guys nowadays, I think, is all left foot braking only, right? There's no more right foot at all. It's just like right foot stays gas, left foot stays on brake, and that's it.
And there's probably no room in there to switch your foot over either, right?
Yeah.
Point taken. Yeah, good point.
Well, your feet are in a cradle, so it looks like it's hard to move from one to another. In the past, you can float from one to another, but now their feet look like they're in the cradle, so it's left foot braking only. Yeah.
So then we could work it. You just jam on. It's plant on it at the end of the straight at 200 miles an hour. You don't have to have much sensitivity, because you just need to slow down. You need to slow down.
You make it sound so easy.
That's what we're supposed to do, right? Yeah, until you practice it.
Yeah.
All right, Lewis.
Yeah.
Lewis going to Ferrari.
I think it's a good thing.
Oh, I think it's going to be awesome.
How much is he getting? Was it 456 million?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's F1. You're not going to go there for peanuts, right? So you might as well make it worth your while financially. But I think he's also going there for a challenge. You could say that too. But he's leaving the challenge. I think Mercedes is a really good team. Yeah, but he's been there for so long, right? So it's like now, like when he left McLaren and came to Mercedes, that was a challenge. Going into a team you didn't know. Nico was there. He had to come and set himself up. Now he's been at Mercedes. It's like, going.
Well, I think that was an easy move. You went from customer to factory. Factory always has.
It was an easy move. It was an easy move, but everyone thought he was making a mistake, right? Because Mercedes was still a new team. They didn't have a winning car before. Yada yada yada, and then it worked out, Right. So I think, hey, he's a 7-time world champion. Some will speculate and say, damage his legacy. No, he won't. He's not going to damage his
Oh,
leg.
I don't think so at all.
7-time world champion. So he'll go to Ferrari, and who knows? Maybe he'll do what Alonzo couldn't do. You know, maybe he'll do what Vettel couldn't do. You know,
well, maybe he'll do what Michael did.
Maybe he'll do what Michael did in the team Michael did it in.
Yes.
You know,
I think also real quick, Ray, that two things can be true. I think he's going to go there with some experience too. I think that engineering team that they got there is inexperienced, just based on last year and how they were working with what's his name?
Sainz and Charles Leclerc.
Yeah, Charles Leclerc. Sorry, I was been blank. And you know, they were asking him really, to me, rookie questions while he's driving, right? And to me, that all should be handled and planned way ahead of time. You should have a plan A through D or something like that, or 1 through 4. And if something happens and changes, your tire management and everything should be already laid out, sketched out, and he should know exactly what plan A is, plan B is, plan C is. Not asking him what does he want to do. They should say, this is what we're going to do. Right. And I think Lewis is going to go there and probably help with that experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And just to answer your question real quick, Mark, he was making $84 million a year at Mercedes. He's possibly going to be making 100 at Ferrari. On top of that, the day they announced it, Ferrari made $6 billion.
Jesus. Yeah. They're not worried about it.
So touching back
He already
on
paid for a salary.
Well, touching back on what Simon said, right? I understand that you have to have plans in place to do things for actions. However, you have to be careful that you're not rigid in those plans, because I think a driver is the one that knows really what's going on with the car. Yes, they're pulling data from the car, right? And they're seeing their tire wear, they're seeing this, from the temperature pressures and all that stuff. But still, ultimately, until we become an autonomous car that's out there racing, it's still the driver's feedback that plays a role, right? The driver is going to tell you, hey, do I feel? Because you're using the driver to corroborate the analytics that you're seeing coming back, right? Because they're saying, the data might be saying the tires are going off, right? Statistically, you should be changing tires now. And then you're going to talk to the driver, how does the car feel, right? The driver's going to give his feedback, and you're going to watch his time. If he can maintain a time and still, even with the data saying that it should be time for you to, put the car, change the tires, I think I would go with the driver, right? So it's still, in some ways, yes, you need to have the framework ready, but you still have to be ready to put that framework aside when needed, right? Given situation, because we had it last year, right? Even with Mercedes, they reached out to him a few times to say, hey, how's, what's the tire? And he goes, oh, I think the tire could go some more, go a bit longer, right? And they let him go, but they didn't watch the time on the, on the lap time to see if what he was feeling translated into actual statistics, data, but the data that it translated to. So, I just think that you gotta be flexible. You have to be careful not to be rigid. I would say Ferrari, they didn't sound like they came they came initially with a plan. However, their plan was so skewed that they got so far that they didn't trust what they were thinking anymore. Right. And that's where we saw that with Sainz, right? When they wanted to bring him in and he goes, no, I'm good. I want, or they wanted to go to this tire and he said, no, go to this tire. Right. And on those occasions, it proved correct. Right. So I think that the fall down from Ferrari was their internal, the strategists. Right. That department did not have their act together. They were lacking in that area. Right. And that was their big fall down, because who was it? Charles, right? He trusted them because he's doing his part. And they misled him a few times to the point where he decided, I'm going to start calling shots too. Yeah. Right. So again, it's got to be a balancing act in that way. Yes, you have data comes in, and stuff. You're crunching your calculations to see what it is, analytics, and then, but you still have to go back and say, hey, that person in the seat, how do you feel? And if you feel okay, then all right, let's see what the numbers say. Right, take a lap or two, and let's see if you can keep that time. If you can keep that time, and then you draw your hand on it. Just my take.
Yeah, and you know what though, I wonder also, not to keep going back to that era, but like they always said, Michael pulled everybody together at the team, so it wasn't just You know, his mechanics and so on. He was involved in everything as far as the lead up to it. Maybe what they really need, and that's why they got Lewis, is that nothing against Charles, but I think Lewis has a little bit more of a presence, and he has more experience, so that he may be able to, you know, shake it up to say, no, we need this, we need that, we need this. And I mean, again, he's a 7-time world champion. You're not going to doubt him. So I think that he might be the one to help shake them up, and that might be part of why they're bringing him in, to help them rebuild the back office, so to speak, you know, to make them stronger. Because they need it. They need it.
Yeah.
They're too wishy-washy for a team of their caliber. It's very like rookie team antics going on back there.
Yeah. I think it's going to be interesting, right? I think it's going to be interesting. Ferrari, I mean, their car was pretty good last year. It wasn't bad, but Mercedes still beat them out. And in the beginning of the year, they were doing very well. I thought they were going to give Red Bull a run for their money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting how the car fares this year as well, and you know, to see how they compete this year.
Right. Yeah, I believe that I saw a thing where they said the car pretty much seems the same as it did last year.
Really? No changes?
Yeah, pretty much. Like they were like, seems the same.
Yeah.
You know, compared to last year. So I don't know. You know, I figure Lewis going there, stuff is already done. It might be another 3 years.
Well, they're going to start over.
Huh?
How long was Vettel with Ferrari?
Was he with them? 4 years? I think he was.
Yeah.
Well, Lewis is hedging his bet, right? Because 2026 is when the rules change, right?
Yeah.
So this car dies at 2025. That's the last year of this car. So, you know, if Mercedes could bring something out that's challenging, I see that's a win for Lewis, because then, you know, he can go get his 8th championship, right? And I think he's hedging the bet that Ferrari has the general makeup of what he needs, so that in 2025 they might be able to still be competitive, right? Because of, you know, what they have. So if they don't go far from the recipe, but, you know, it's like I said before, I just remember they had a discussion at one point, and Lewis said in the meeting, you know, that they had, I said, I told you that was not the right direction. Right. And I think, to me, that was the linchpin in the whole thing for Lewis, is like, dude, you're not even taking my input. You know, after sitting in this car for 7 years and wringing its neck, you're still not taking my input. Yes, I'm not an engineer. I'm not an aerodynamicist, but I'm the guy that's, you know, I'm the seat jockey that drives the sucker. And I'm telling you that that's not going to work. Right. And I think his opinion was discounted too much. And they, you know, went down with their analytics, and then their analytics was wrong. Right. Because, again, you know, it's like anything else, right? I learned in school, there's practical and there's theory. And, you know, they will diverge. So you have to, the practical came when he got in the car on what he was doing. You know, that's the validation if the theory was right. And showed itself it wasn't. So, you know.
No, that's true. Well, I think, like I said, since Vettel, Lewis, well, they had Alonzo, Vettel, and now Lewis. They have a top tier driver there, so I would expect him to shake them to listen to what he has to say. He's a proven champion, you know, and hopefully it'll fix, you know, it'll help them get closer to where they want to go.
Well, we hope, right? Yeah. So
good segue, and you heard that into trying to figure out where Seiss is going to go next year, then, right?
Ooh.
So you heard that, right? Everybody's saying Alonso needs to go to Mercedes, right?
Yeah, I've heard that talk. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting, you know, if they got a car, because, you know, if it's again, Alonso, not to take anywhere, he's there for me with with Checo, right? Because I think I referred to a clip I saw him driving a car that was on the steering, right, on Kona entry, and the way he drove around that sucker is that he didn't brake. He used the understeer to slow the car down.
Right.
So he didn't lose time. You know what I'm saying? He just pushed it in, wheels scrubbed the tires scrubbed off the speed, and then he went. So it'd be interesting to see that. I think that it would make, if we could get a season with Alonzo, Verstappen, Lewis, and I'll give what's his name too, the guy from McLaren. What's his name? Lando Norris. Yeah. Come to the front. That what's called Liberty Media would be raking it in that year because
I think Lando's going to go to Mercedes.
I don't think McLaren's letting him go.
No, he has a multi-year contract.
Yeah, he's not.
And Oscar Piastri.
Yeah, he's not coming out.
Yeah, they both have multi-year contracts, so they're already tied up.
Honestly, I would like to see Fernando get into a competitive car. Yes. Because he's fire. He can still do it. He can still do it. Yeah, I'm not a huge Fernando fan, but I respect his craft, his racecraft. He is good, Yeah,
not what he does in the back office with the team of the politics, but on track. He earns my respect. Him, Checo, Lewis, Max, yes, I guess.
I respect Max. Racecraft, listen, Max. I'm not a Max fan. Racecraft, I respect it. He's a very good. He's an exceptional driver.
So what I say is this. Go ahead, finish. Finish.
Like Lewis is an exceptional driver, Fernando is an exceptional driver. George is still to be determined.
Right.
Checo, I think he's more than a strong number 2, but I don't think he's a solid number 1.
Okay.
Right? That's the way I feel. George, I don't know yet. Lando, he's mild mannered. I think, he could. I'm starting to lean that he could be a world champion. But he still needs a little more experience.
He's going to be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, he's like everybody else, right? Because Lewis was kind of rough in the beginning when he was doing it too, right? And as over time, his edges, the maturity showed up because of the experience, right?
Right.
So I see it in Lando. I see it in Checo. If Checo is given a car that to his liking, Checo can excel there too, right? I think Checo can be in that group. Because again, it's got to be said, for having substandard vehicles and showing up with that stuff, it speaks to the driver. In my opinion, it speaks to the driver ability to push that sucker to get it up there, right?
So if Sainz goes to Mercedes, who's number 1? Who's number 2?
If Sainz goes to Mercedes,
it's a battle between him and George.
Yeah, well, Sainz is sporadic, right? He'll show up and not show up because I think Sainz sometimes drives too much over the edge.
Right.
I was listening to something Peter Winslow said, and he was commenting on Sainz's driving technique, and I think if Peter Winslow, what he was saying was accurate, I can't doubt him. I think Sainz needs to be able to recognize when he might be pushing it too far and to make the adjustments to be more consistent, right? But he has talent also, right? Sainz does have talent, and he is, and he will show up. It's just that there's a few things I think he may need to, investigate, what he needs to do in order to, make it there. But yeah, it would be, it could be an interesting time if we were to get some of those guys in some vehicles that would, that can perform up there. Because again, my takeaway is, yes, I remember from back in the Mercedes days, they would drive away from the crowd. But and now last year, Red Bull had that car, right? Because my memory is, the brake reduction system was off, was not enabled, right? And my man just drove away from the field. And I had to sit to myself and say, wait a minute, in the regulations, how's that legal? So is something under the table that he didn't need that in order to walk away from everybody. So when you look at it that way, and if that's legal, then as a competitor, you just you dismiss that stuff because, you don't, unless you have a car that can do the same thing, you're not in that league at all. Right. And then you're only going after, and plus on top of that, they seem to have a lot of consistency with the car. It didn't break. Right. So, I have to give them props for that because it was good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Why
You
do
gonna
you
say,
guys
Simon?
think, I was going to ask, why do you guys think they announced it a year prior and not in the off season next year, as far as Lewis going to Ferrari?
Well, I think it's part of it is that it gives for Mercedes time as well to find another driver.
No.
I mean, if he did it in the off season, all that jockeying for position with people would have already been done. Then you have Sainz in the cold, possibly not knowing what's going to happen, hasn't signed a new contract, and then Lewis knowing he. I think it was probably the fairest thing to do. So now the drivers can try and find a place to go. Teams can try to pick up somebody, those that don't have their drivers locked in. I think that's just how it was. It just worked out better that way.
Well, he he took it on. He took it. What's the saying that you put yourself on the sword or whatever it was? There's a saying
on
that
the
goes
sword?
something. Yeah, because he's given them enough time for them to make that decision, as opposed to, I think, looking out for just himself and saying he helped out. I think he kind of helped. He put himself in a bad position, in my opinion, because as they say, as they go on, they're going to then keep him out of conversation. So basically, this car, the way I see it, if he does not get his stuff together and get the car moving the first part of the season towards the middle, he won't have an opportunity. It's going to really test his driving ability to bring the car that's from later on in the season to make it work for him.
I don't think so, Ray. I always put the business hat on and say, hey, from a business standpoint, you still want to win. There's a lot of money at the end of the season for getting those manufacturing points and making sure that you win and still get on the podium. I just don't think he's going to be the focal point anymore. And Russell being playing second fiddle. I think Russell is probably going to move up in certain races to be the focal point. And if Lewis is doing okay, then okay, Lewis, we might think about putting you first or switching the cars. But I think Russell now is going to be their target, and they're going to go out and find somebody else. But they still want those constructor points because they want the money. So they're going to want Lewis to win.
Yeah.
Well, you just answered my question, right? Because you just said it, right? Let's recap. You said that the car is going to be focused more to Russell because Russell is now the primary, right? And we've seen, based upon history in the past, if you're not the primary driver, they don't bring the car to your liking. The car drifts towards the primary driver's liking, right? So that's where my point comes from, where, Lewis, in the early part of the car is not really to anybody's liking of the season, right? And that's why I say that if Lewis can bring it to where he can massage it so he can get ahead far enough, right, then it'll be to his advantage, because as the season progresses, as you said, right, is Russell going to be their lead? So they're going to go to the things that Russell likes. And if the things that Russell likes in the car is contrary to what Lewis likes, then he's going to have to develop now how to drive around that in order to bring the car up to the level that he needs. Right?
Well, I'll say, okay. The car is made, let's say. So it's made with both their inputs pretty much already. The only changes that happen during the season is aerodynamics for the most part. There's aero packages they put and they do certain little tweaks, right? I still think, listen, I don't think they're going to not value Lewis's input on the car. I think it's just that, as they've said, for the next car, he's not going to be keyed in for that. So he's not going to be brought in for that. But as far as the current car they're racing, I agree with Simon. They want to win, right?
I understand it.
And all
Go ahead, sorry.
And like you said, if Lewis is ahead, like of George, they'll still take his input. What they'll probably do, which they have done, is they'll share it more with George. They might share a little more than they normally would have earlier with George to say, okay, hey, this is what Lewis is doing. Can you make this work? How it works for you? That's all right.
So I say, yes, the company, they want to win, but Lewis does not have to win a championship for them to be winners in the constructors, right?
True.
You agree on that? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at it solely from Lewis's perspective. Lewis needs a championship. That's what he wants.
Yeah.
Right. And so again, and aerodynamics, from what I've learned, I'll come to understanding this stuff. Aerodynamics is key in this thing. The major components that are key in this thing is a reliable power unit, which is an engine, right? And the aerodynamics of the vehicle. Those are the key components for a car. So what it reminds me of is like when you go buy a house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they say the starting price is this, and when you walk in the house, you just barely have the sheetrock on the walls and the paint on the walls, and that's it, right? And if you really want the home that you're looking for, then it's going to cost you, because you need to get this finish, you need to get this type of stuff, and that's what they do over the season, right? Is that yes, you start off with a car now that's basically it's a house, you know what I'm saying? Especially if you walk in with the wrong recipe to begin with, right? And now through the season, as we saw like last season, you try to then tweak it to bring it to that level that, that is going to be competitive, right? And again, it's just based upon history, the way I see it, you have a dude that's walking out the door. Yes, he had a great history with him or whatever, but you have this guy that's sticking with you, in past tense, they've always gone with the lead driver. And if they pick George as a lead driver, they're going to want George's input. And that's where it's going to come. Whereas that's why I say in the beginning of the season, when they're not sure what the car is, this is the time to strike. You know what I'm saying? Until mid-season, because I think after mid-season, the car is going to go away to George. They're gonna push stuff to what he likes, and then that's where Lewis is now. You're going to see his driving talent come up, or not come up, right? Because if it's too far away, then then it's not going to work for him, right? So that's how I see it, and I think he kind of did Mercedes a favor, because now they know they have enough ample time to go find somebody that they want to put in the seat, right, as to go forward. Because if I was thinking that Lewis was thinking for himself, as I said in the past, he should leave them now, and go to Ferrari right away, right. And then that that would be the thing. So so it's going to be an interesting year coming through, because they're going to close him out. They're going to close him out after a while. They just have to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they will. They will have to do that, but I don't think it's going to be right away. And
no, it won't. But after midseason, the car changes after midseason. As you get to midseason, if you don't have a good package, by the time they drop the second and third, upgrade, that's where things change.
Yeah, because then they start thinking of the next car, and they
while they're working on it. Yeah, but since this season. Since the regulations still have this car running until next year, I don't think it's going to be that drastic a change. Everybody hits ground zero come 2026, right? Because that's when it's a new everything's new, right? So everybody starts off from zero. But for now it is. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be, all I can say, Lewis is, as Simon shared, he made them money by putting this stuff out now. I hope he got some of that change. Because
100 million.
No, more than that. More than that. Because
his salary is already paid for. So basically, what he did was announce it, got his salary paid for, and now he's good to go, right?
No, but he needs some more money, because as somebody once said, it's not about spending the money; it's about having more zeros in front of that decimal point than the next guy.
Right.
So if you said Ferrari went up like 6 million or whatever, made 6 million
billion.
I'm telling you. So I hope Lewis got some of that. You know what I'm saying? He needs to get some of that. And Liberty is making big time money, because now people are even with Drive to Survive, which was a key thing that was a good reach out for them that worked, and it's brought more people. Now with his announcement, poof, everybody's over Drive to Survive now. They're going to get more revenue. So he needs to be getting some money under the table somewhere. That 100 million is not enough.
No, listen,
100 million a year.
That's not the whole package.
No, it's still not enough. It's still not enough. When somebody's making billions, millions ain't nothing, bro.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Lewis has a whole other revenue, many other revenue streams. So, and we don't know if there's any bonuses on wins on that. We don't know what's the main.
Right, but I understand that he has streams, but I'm saying he need to capitalize on. He just put money in the pocket of Liberty and a lot of other teams for what he, for what he did, right? And so he needs to be collecting on that too. That's the point I'm making. You know what I'm saying?
No,
we don't know. He needs to be collecting on that because, the days, we always come out short. We always come out short. You know what I'm saying? We always come out short. Put it that way. They demand the most and get compensated the least. So, right. So even though it's 100 million ain't nothing, when somebody's making billions, you need to show up. Show me the money.
We lost Mark, and Mark's having a hard time, having some technical difficulties, but we'll have him back next week. He's trying to get in. I don't understand what's it's asking him to get in and be on stage, but we can't get him in. So we lost Mark. We'd love to hear what he had to say about it. I just think right now Lewis is just thinking about ending his legacy with Ferrari, right? It's kind of like what LeBron did with the Lakers. I think he wants to end his season and end his career with Ferrari, see if he can win that one championship that he needs to break the record that he lost in 2021. We won't bring that up, but I think if he does it with Ferrari, I think that's kind of him saying, giving the nice finger to Red Bull. Well,
you know what? But you know what? If not even that, I think if he ends it at Ferrari and he gets a world title from there, he's doing something where he's a world. I don't know the stats if it's been done. He would be a world champion that has won titles with 3 different teams. That would be an interesting thing for me to look up to see, has it been done before or so on. But that would be his thing, I think, to be like, okay, came to McLaren, won 2. I went to Mercedes and I won 5, and then went to Ferrari and won what? Wow.
He's writing the history books.
He's ticking it all across.
Yes.
All right, well, it was a great topic today. We're going to probably close out. Thank you for joining us with our podcast. This was our first podcast. We had a lot of fun. I don't know about you guys, but had a lot of fun. Expect more to come, and we'll see you guys next week.
Take care.
Take care.
All right. Peace.